On the sideline during the biggest games of his career, with championships and legacies on the line in front of tens of millions of people, Bill Belichick's face does something unusual. It does almost nothing at all. No matter the outcome of the previous play, a disaster or a triumph, the expression barely shifts, and the next decision gets made with the same flat, procedural focus as the one before it. Across more than 2 decades leading the New England Patriots to 6 Super Bowl championships, more than any coach in the history of the league, that specific quality, an almost total refusal to let emotion enter the decision-making process, became as central to his success as any single strategy, draft strategy, or in-game adjustment he's credited with. Reporters who have covered him for decades describe press conferences where a question about a devastating loss and a question about a record-breaking win receive almost identically flat, procedural answers, delivered in the same tone, with the same brevity. This episode is about what that discipline actually looked like in practice, day to day, away from the cameras, and about the costs, personal and relational, that came with building an entire career on top of it. One of the clearest illustrations of Belichick's operating principle came in decisions that, from the outside, looked almost irrational, releasing or trading players who were fan favorites, locker room leaders, or established stars, specifically at moments when their statistical production had started to decline relative to their cost or their age curve. The public and media reaction to these moves was frequently harsh, accusing him of disloyalty or coldness toward players who had given years of service to the team. Belichick's stated view, repeated across decades of interviews, was consistent, that decisions about a football team have to be made based on what maximizes the team's actual performance going forward, not based on sentiment about the past, gratitude for prior contribution, or public pressure to be seen as loyal. The phrase most associated with his entire operating philosophy, "do your job," was less a slogan than a genuinely accurate description of how the organization was run, a relentless focus on function over feeling, applied consistently regardless of a player's name recognition, his years of service, or how the decision would be received by fans and media the following morning. The discipline underneath this isn't simply an absence of feeling. Belichick has spoken about the intensity of preparation his approach demands, film study that runs into the deep hours of the night, a refusal to accept any explanation for a loss other than a specific, correctable failure in preparation or execution, treating bad luck, bad calls, or bad weather as irrelevant variables that a sufficiently thorough process should have already accounted for. The emotional flatness that outside observers see in press conferences and on the sideline is, by most accounts including his own former players, the visible surface of an enormous amount of unglamorous, repetitive analytical work underneath, an attempt to remove as much uncertainty and as much reliance on gut feeling from decisions as the game allows. It is worth being honest that this approach has also been directly connected, by numerous former players and by extensive reporting, to a working environment several described as harsh, fear-based, and difficult to sustain over a long career, a real cost that a highlight reel of championships tends to leave out. The core transferable principle here isn't emotional coldness for its own sake. It's a specific, disciplined separation between how a decision feels and whether a decision is correct. Most people, most of the time, let those two things blend together without noticing, avoiding a necessary hard conversation because it feels uncomfortable, keeping an underperforming plan in place because changing it would feel like admitting failure, staying loyal to an approach past the point it's actually working because loyalty feels virtuous in the moment. Belichick's entire operating system was built around interrupting that blend, treating the emotional discomfort of a decision as simply irrelevant data, and asking only whether the decision itself, evaluated coldly, was the one most likely to produce the outcome you actually wanted. This is also, without question, the most double-edged principle in this entire series so far. Removing sentiment from decisions can make you more effective and can also, unchecked, make you someone people find difficult to trust, to work for, or to be around, a pattern that shows up repeatedly in accounts of Belichick's own relationships with players and staff over the years. The honest version of this lesson isn't build a career on eliminating all feeling. It's notice specifically where sentiment is distorting a decision you already know, on some level, is the wrong one, and practice making that particular decision anyway, while still being a person your team, your family, or your colleagues can trust in every other respect. Belichick himself, by most accounts, made that trade-off deliberately and has never expressed regret about it. Whether that trade-off is one worth making in your own life is a separate, genuinely open question. Here's something to try this week. Pick one decision you've been avoiding specifically because making it correctly would feel uncomfortable. Ending a partnership, changing an approach you're personally attached to, having a conversation you know is overdue. Write down, separately, what the correct decision actually is based on the facts, and what feeling is currently stopping you from making it. Then ask which one you're actually going to let win. Belichick built one of the most successful runs in the history of professional sports by consistently choosing the first column over the second, at a cost of warmth and popularity that he appears to have accepted without complaint. Next week, we look at a leader whose gift for speed and decisiveness built an empire in less than a decade, and whose refusal to ever apply the brakes eventually became the exact same trait that destroyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.